Welcome to the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association Reasonable Doubt. I'm JV along with Justin Harris. Justin, how you doing?
Been on the road for 9 hours today.
Oh, well.
That's how much I love Reasonable Doubt. I'm still here.
I'll take that as a good sign. Craig, how are you, sir?
I'm good, JB. How about you?
I'm very good, very good. Here at Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, we welcome everyone, including everybody on the live wire, including the one and only Rob Fickman. We look forward to your comments. Rob, how you doing? I'm kidding. He's on the live wire. I'm kidding. Today, we're just going to talk. Hopefully some people chime in. Let's kind of start with the what's going on with Brazoria County. I know last week we had a big show, a lot of buzz. It generated a lot of talk, a lot of views regarding what's going on in Brazoria County. And the idea is the DA down there put a notice up saying that juries may have been assembled contrary to the laws in the state of Texas. What's new? Justin, you heard anything?
Well, everything I'm seeing on the news is like less than 7 days ago. So I think that Reasonable Doubt broke this story first.
I agree. Craig, what says you?
Well, I mean, there's still a lot of rumors floating around, the same as last week, which really that's all this is at this point. I mean, nothing's been proven. These are just allegations. The investigation has just started. I would like to make reference to something that I said last week that I probably should clear up a little bit. I made reference to a rumor that somehow this investigation was related to the retirement of former DA Jerry Yenny, and a number of judges are retiring. Their terms will be up at the end of next year. And I should have been really clear that I don't believe that to be the case for 1 second, that these events are related. I've known Jerry Yenny for the last 20 plus years, had a lot of dealings with her in a lot of cases. She's always been a person of the utmost integrity and character. I think if she had known anything like this was happening, she would have immediately taken steps to investigate it and stop it. And the same goes for all of the Brazoria County judges, not just the ones who are retiring at the end of next year, but the ones that are currently on the bench and will continue to be so. So I should have been clear that was just a rumor floating around. I was trying to offer some examples of some of the things that people were saying. So I just wanted to get that out. But in the meantime, it's been another week of, interesting events.
I'd like to, I don't think anybody thought, nor at least on our circles or from this angle, anybody would ever, anybody thought that Jerry Yenny or any of the current courts knew or had knowledge or should have known about any of this. It kind of appears like, from what we understand it to be, is this is just something that had been going on internally with the clerk, and within the idea is that hopefully a confined circle of humans, we haven't really seen nor heard of it going beyond that. I don't know, have you?
No, I have not. And there's no evidence that it did go beyond that. So, but when this dropped, I mean, obviously it was kind of like a bombshell going off, and there were a lot of rumors floating around. But I from what I've heard, that it is just confined to that small group of people, that no one else knew it was going on. Certainly not Jerry Yenny or any of the judges. So,
to your credit, Craig, I don't know how other people heard what you said last week, but when I'm doing the show, I really don't remember what I just said 5 seconds ago, much less other people. But I didn't take what you said as any kind of an implication or even a rumor that other people knew about this. What I recall is that you were just stating fact, and that there was a sequitur between the two, that, oh yeah, and Jerry Yenny retired suddenly, not an implication that she knew anything about this, or that her retirement had anything to do with this, whatever this is. And the same with the judges who are retiring as well. That's my recollection. I certainly didn't take it that way, but yeah, I think it's always important that we clear things up if there was any kind of misunderstanding out there.
Yeah, I just felt that was really important. So I appreciate, being given that opportunity to do that.
Sure. Well, and whoever knew about it, if it was happening or what was happening, it certainly deserves an investigation. It looks like there's been calls for federal investigations and things like that. Have you been in the Brazoria courthouse since last Thursday?
I have not. I may be down there tomorrow, but I have not been there in the last week. So,
well, let us know. I'd be curious if there's there's anything kind of in the air, as they say, about this. Creating some tension around there.
Yeah, I think really, obviously the focus right now is who knew what and when did they know it, and that's what everybody's looking at this point. So.
There were photos, the media has kind of spun it, and I don't know if it's true or not true, but there has been photos in the media that, they stormed, or people have come into the district clerk's office and or the courthouse and like seized files, and I don't know, has that actually happened, or do you know?
Not that I'm aware of. Like I said, I haven't been down there in the last week. I haven't heard that. I know that there was a video floating around that showed some inmates that apparently were taking boxes out of, I believe, the district attorney's office. And my understanding is that was just standard document handling procedure. There was nothing, nefarious about that. I know that video was floating around. I saw that. Of course, when that aired, that obviously got, got the rumor mill rolling again, and a lot of attention was paid to that.
I doubt that they'd let inmates go in there and look, handle things that are under investigation. That's just my opinion.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, that's just my opinion. And,
certainly would not be a good idea for someone to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, with that being said, what's the climate down there? How is it? You haven't been there in last week, but what's the temperature down there that you think?
I think there's just a lot of I guess you'd say watchful waiting. People are just waiting to see what's going to come out. Obviously, there have been a lot of allegations, a lot of them very serious. But I think anticipation. People are just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen and where we go from here. So,
do we know if there are any criminal remedies to this, or is it civil remedies? Or now, granted, let's just put on the shelf all the writs and all the things that will come down regarding the jury trials that have happened for individuals who have been convicted and or tried in those cases. But for the district clerk herself, are there criminal? Obviously, I'd suppose if there are intentional tampering with government documents and or procedures, I'd imagine there's some criminal charges behind it. Has that been discussed at all, or do we know anything about that, or what are your thoughts about it?
Tampering with the government records seems to be the common theme that most people think is being looked at. That's what I hear over and over again. Personally, I haven't researched it, but that's what I keep hearing from lawyers that are.
I have to look at the official oppression statute, what that all includes. I also heard that there's a district attorney in Georgia who was indicted today or yesterday for kind of dragging her feet on charging some people with the shooting of a young black man who was going for a jog in his neighborhood and maybe interfering with that investigation. But one thing she was charged with was like improper execution of public duties or oath of office or something like that. I just heard it somewhere in the 9 hours was in the car today on the radio. But I would look more into that. But I don't know if Texas has a statute similar to that as Georgia, and if that could come in. But none of those, any criminal sanctions against the district clerk, a former district clerk, or anyone else who was involved in this wouldn't necessarily provide any relief or remedies for the people who, according to Cornell X and others who are calling for federal investigations, that if there were wrong convictions, I don't know that criminally charging those folks will fix that, but everything should be looked at, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, no doubt.
I wonder if there are any, if this is like a federal thing or it's going to stay state. I'm not quite sure. I don't practice much federal court, nor do I know any of the federal rules, but I wonder if this is something that goes federal. And I wonder if the clerk's office there, if in the event that she is charged with some sort of criminal activity, whether or not she could get a fair trial in there. Right out the gate, I'm almost thinking, yeah, she probably could, because I doubt the people are that upset that they were probably sending blacks and minorities to prison disparatively. It pisses off a lot of people down there, respectfully.
I was thinking of the irony of supposedly stacking the deck in juries, and then whether that person who did so could get a fair trial later on.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, Brazoria County is one of the strongest Republican stronghold in Texas, in the history of Texas. And Beto, or Robert, almost flipped it last time. So he came close. He didn't, but he came close. And I'm telling you, man, if you start to take into account what North Pearland is looking at, North Brazoria County is looking like, that county might just flip, man. I don't know, man. I'm just saying, it's just something to think about. Or not, and I'm not here to advocate Republican or Democrat. I'm just saying the demographics of Brazoria County, particularly the north half of it, is changing, and it's changing big time.
Yeah, my recollection is during the Beto race, there might have been a JP or a constable who typically would win by 15 or 20 points, and the margin was cut down to 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think it flipped back a little bit more Republican last election in 2020. But you're right. I mean, particularly in the north side of the county, I think there have been some Democratic inroads, no doubt.
There was an article released recently talking, and it was a Harris County specific article, but I think it speaks into other counties and surrounding counties, that the juries are disproportionately, the jury pools that people who end up showing up to serving on the jury are obviously they're more affluent, they're able to take days off of the job, they're more Caucasian, they're able to go to jury service. Initially I was going to say, oh yeah, that shows that people who show up to jury duty, they're more white. Well, I mean, granted, okay, fine that they are, but it has, if you take out race, well, I mean, you can't take out race, but if you think about it, well, sure, the people who can get to jury duty are the people who can afford to take those days off, are the people who can afford to get to the jury, to get to the location, are the people who have the method and means to serve on a jury, not the individuals who can't take the day off, who would typically be lower socioeconomic individuals and people who are unable to sacrifice a day of work, and people who are unable to find childcare, people who are unable to have rides to and from the jury, the jury location. They typically tend to be, well, they don't typically, they are lower socioeconomic categories, classes of people. And those classes of people tend to be individuals who are non-white. And so it didn't really break, it's a study that came out and it specifically focused on Harris County. So at the end of the article, I was kind of thinking yeah, okay, that makes sense. People who can get to jury duty are people who can afford and are able to get to jury duty. And the people who can't don't. And those people who can tend to be white, and everybody else does tend to be not. So I didn't find it to be that compelling. I mean, it was more like a duh, like, okay, we already know that. But I think the same thing can be said for Brazoria County, in that, the people that can get to jury duty in Angleton, because that's a big county. And if you're traveling to Angleton from Pearland or from South Brazoria County or East Brazoria County or North Brazoria County, that's a big trek. And I don't necessarily know if they got the public transit systems and the ways and means to get from, one end of Brazoria County to Angleton. I don't know. I just found it very interesting. That's all.
Well, JJ, I'm going to have to sign off. I appreciate being given the opportunity to come on tonight. So,
Craig, you're the best, man.
Craig, we appreciate it. Let us know how it's going down there. Keep us updated.
Absolutely, absolutely. Y'all have a good evening.
Likewise, brother.
Okay, take care.
See you, man. Justin, what's new, man? How are you?
Not much. today's the 2nd of September, so that means on the 1st of September, all kinds of new laws went into effect, right?
Let's talk about it, man. 666 new laws go into effect September 1st. So let's go ahead and start with
666. The Governor Abbott.
You know, I just thought about that, man. I just thought about that. Okay, so the 666 new laws that go into effect. Let's start with number 1. I'm kidding. All right, I know.
I don't have my crib notes here,
Yeah.
dude.
Well, look, one of the big things that's coming through, I mean, right out the gate is the no abortions past 6 or 7 weeks. So I guess let's just toss that one out there. It's caused yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, set it up.
No, okay, so the idea is that Texas passed a law that past 6 or 7 weeks, you cannot abort. Women cannot exercise their choice to abort. Cannot exercise the right to abort. And in the event that they do, while they can't get sued, anybody that aided or abetted them or facilitated in the abortion can be sued. And Texas law allows for a private citizen to sue them, and therefore and recover up to, I believe, $10,000 in a punitive damage in damages, and also attorney's fees. In the event that the defendant is successful in defending that lawsuit, they cannot recover attorney's fees, and basically they're out of the time and money that's spent litigating these things. The Texas.
Wow, that sounds fair.
No, it's absolutely not fair. I know that was being sarcastic. No. And so the idea is that anybody who says like, hey, you should probably have an abortion, or you should, or somebody who facilitates or drives the individual to have the abortion, or somebody that participates in the abortion can get sued by a private citizen, not only anybody in Texas, but anybody outside of Texas. And also, interestingly, I guess it was challenged, or a petition was filed in the Supreme Court of the United States, and the Supreme Court said, you know what? They didn't say that it's unconstitutional, this Texas law, but they did say that, hey, look, the individuals, it's not. I don't want to say ripe, because I'm probably misusing that word, but that procedurally it wasn't ready to be decided. And therefore, September 1st, anybody who has an abortion after 6 or 7 weeks is subject to civil penalties and being sued, which is a big deal.
Well, anyone who has an abortion, performs an abortion, I guess empties the wastebasket in the room where there's one. Anyone who, like you said, drives the person to get there. I'd like to know how wide the aiding and abetting is, and what kind of knowledge element is required. Because somebody asked me, what if an Uber driver takes someone and drops them off at a clinic? Does the Uber driver have to know what they're going there for? What if the Uber driver figures it out or has a suspicion when they get there? And one thing that's really kind of gets the lawyer geek in me going a little bit in an interesting, intriguing way, but also really angers me as a feminist and someone who supports anyone's right to do pretty much whatever they want with their body, is the way that this law was written, and the so-called pro-life or anti-choice legal factions in the country have been writing and working on whittling down Roe versus Wade and other laws, and intentionally like challenging these laws and putting these in front of the legislature to challenge and see where the borders are for Roe versus Wade. And I heard the guy from the group who sponsored this bill, or drafted the bill for the legislature to sponsor, on the radio this morning, and he was saying, he was making no bones about it, that this law was intended and uses civil penalties, not criminal penalties. And the intent behind that was to be able to challenge, to withstand any kind of challenge in the courts.
Right, because typically, I suppose it's the state. It's the state that is by putting the private citizen as the individual, it circumvented or
The government.
right. It circumvented any rules and laws, and it allows for this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it gets. I don't know if enforced is the right word, but used. And I haven't heard that part about if a defendant successfully litigates against something like this, they're on the hook for all their attorney's fees.
There's nothing. You just get sued. You just get sued the heck out of, and that's
it can be expensive. There's plenty of companies who realize they do, risk benefit and cost benefit analysis, and they'll settle out lawsuits just because it's going to cost more to have their lawyers defend a frivolous lawsuit than to just pay out a settlement. It gets like you and me, we ain't cheap, JB, and we're not even these big shot civil lawyers. It's expensive to defend against even a baseless accusation.
In the state of Texas, there's something like 50 or 52,000 abortions that happen every year. The idea is, okay, so fine. So we have the baby, but we don't provide the social services that are needed to raise the child. And we cut funding for the social programs that help and assist these children, which I don't get. It's like have the baby, but don't take care of it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pro-life to the point of birth, right?
Well, I'm not here to push my beliefs or views on it. On the flip side, I'd imagine on the other side, it's saying, well, we're preserving life. Fine. What I'm saying is fine. If you want to preserve the life, then take care of the baby when it's born and provide the social system and networking for it to be born. That's just my opinion on it.
No, I agree. I agree completely. And there's 50 to 52,000 abortions a year. 90% of those are after 6 weeks. They call it the fetal heartbeat bill, but there's two heartbeats involved here. There's the mother and the child, and there's no exceptions under this law, not for rape, for incest, for anything.
Right, and it's like you can force a 14-year-old rape victim to carry the baby to term and not only jeopardize the 14-year-old who's having the baby, for example, and then the life of the baby, for example. But at the same time, they're opposing vaccines, a mandatory vaccine, right?
Right.
It's just incredible to me. It's absolutely incredible.
They're opposing like a living wage for the parents to be able to support the child. Then they turn around, like you said, and oppose any kind of social services and benefits that could help supplement the low income that the parents may be having to live on.
It's have the baby, don't support it, and then when you don't support it, you have people in poverty, and poverty breeds crime and then feeds the system, and
never mind the fact that there are not laws passed that have anything to do with what you and I can do with our bodies as men.
Right.
Right. As a father who was there for every single step of the way that I possibly could be, when my child's mother was pregnant, it puts a lot on a woman's body, and not just during the pregnancy, but afterwards. It's a big decision that should be made. And if the decision to get pregnant wasn't made, or things change and information comes out after that, the woman should have a right to be able to make those decisions about her body. And many, many women, many pregnancies happen, and they're not even discovered till after 6 weeks. This is mind blowing, and it certainly does not make Texas look very good because it's the first state that's enacted this. It's scary that the Supreme Court declined to hear arguments on it or take the issue up. The dissent that Justice Sotomayor put out was scathing. I was not as surprised based on some recent things, but I was intrigued to see that Chief Justice John Roberts joined in with the 4 dissent who wanted the case to be heard.
I was very interested to see that. I think there was something like 24 clinics who were performing these procedures in Texas. I thought there'd be more, but now individuals, they're either going to have to do it themselves, go across the border, or go to a different state. Which who can afford that? Who can afford that? The only people that can afford that are people in decent zip codes, and the people in decent zip codes are white people. And I mean, it's true, but they're disproportionately Caucasians.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
They're disproportionately Caucasians. And so guess who gets to have all these babies that they can't support and have are blacks and Mexicans and or non-whites. We'll call them non-white people, non-white individuals. And then when they go to social services, all the social services are cut. And so then they're struggling to raise these children in poverty, and therefore these individuals in poverty typically will seek out crime. And then now we just funnel more individuals into the criminal justice system, which is great for you and I, but it's not good for social justice. That's just my opinion.
Right. I agree with you completely on everything you just said. And you know, the more middle class and upper class people who are mostly look like me, who are going to be sending or allowing or aiding and abetting women to go to another state for an abortion, it's probably not going to be. It's going to be like teenage daughters, right?
Rick, yeah. Well, Rick,
and they're gonna. And I wonder what the people who passed this bill mostly look like, supported and sponsored and passed this bill. They probably mostly look like me. They come from a background similar to mine.
Rick Oliver brought up this is what I was trying to explain, but Rick Oliver can articulate things way better than I can. He said, didn't they decline to take it up for procedural reasons? And the answer is yes. It's a civil remedy. No one has been sued yet, so it sounded like a standing issue to me, not a tacit approval of the new law. That's exactly right. Now, the Supreme Court, that's exactly right. The Supreme Court didn't say that this law is unconstitutional, nor did they really make a comment on the law. They merely said procedurally, for procedural reasons, they're not going to rule one way or the other. It just nobody's been sued yet, and it hasn't been challenged procedurally in quote unquote the correct way. It's what Rick Oliver says, and that's right.
Law, that is exactly right. But they were seeking a stay on the law, and when injunctions or restraining orders are put in place, the proponent of the restraining order, the injunction, has to show that a harm is imminent. Right? These clinics all shut down. There were women who had appointments scheduled for yesterday and today and tomorrow and next week, and they're already past their 6 weeks, or they're going to be past their 6 weeks by then. But these clinics have shut down because they don't want to deal with the lawsuits for everybody who works there.
Right.
And
right.
That's one question that I have, is about standing, and I need to read the statute to see if the statute actually defines standing. But I don't understand how, like, JV, if you're in a car accident with Mark in the studio. Let's say you intentionally hit or negligently or recklessly hit Mark's vehicle. Do I get to sue you on behalf of Mark? Like, why does a random person have standing to be able to sue someone who's either getting an abortion, providing an abortion, or aiding and abetting someone in providing an abortion or getting an abortion? Where's that standing there? And I need to see if the statute actually provides the standing. I see legal issues with this law potentially as well.
Three things. The first one is, Rick Oliver, you are always right. The second thing is you're exactly right. I think we have to check out procedurally how they're supposed to get there. But the third thing is that I believe the Chief Justice actually was a dissenter. Like, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said, you know what, I dissent to these kind of things. Either way, that's just one.
He joined with the three so-called liberal justices,
right?
Kagan, Sotomayor, and Kennedy. Yeah, that's what I was surprised to see, and not totally surprised because of the way he's been voting lately. But Chief Justice John Roberts, a George W. Bush appointee, has been surprising some people on the left lately. He's also not been. He's made some decisions that were not very good. I think he joined the majority opinion on the juvenile execution, the death penalty for juveniles case not too long ago, which was very disappointing.
I didn't catch up on that. We can, U.S. can kill kids now?
We're back to being able to do that.
Oh, yeah. Wow. That's incredible. So Sean Darvishi on the show today. Sean says...
They got to come on and show their face and let us hear their voice.
I agree.
Give them credit for being on the show. All those people who you've mentioned, though, are always welcome.
So Sean says on the new laws. Speaking of new laws, I mean, we can do a whole show on the abortion rule, on the abortion law. But just moving on for purposes of people on the live wire. Sean Darvishi, how are you doing? Two things. We talked to Darvishi. If you're still watching, please chime in. But it's my understanding that who's in 16 now, 2.0? I forget. Not Daryl Jordan. Right. So Fields had a bull coming issue in front of him. So the state of Texas tried to bring in an expert to testify regarding the blood results that wasn't the expert that analyzed the blood results. And the state tried to bring in somebody else to testify regarding what they could, what the results were. It's my understanding that Darvishi brought up the bull coming case and said, hey, look, no, sorry, you got to put up the analyst who actually analyzed the blood. Otherwise, it's inadmissible. And supposedly, I don't know if I think he got a non-favorable ruling from him out of Court 16, which is surprising to me because bull coming is very, very settled law. So the idea that the state of Texas, number one, is trying to bring in testimony of experts who did not examine the blood, but also that we have that Judge Fields, who quite frankly, he's a very smart judge, very good, 2.0 is a very good judge, but didn't, abide by the bull coming ruling, which is pretty settled law.
When was that? I didn't hear this.
It's like
this week?
Yeah, it was like last week, dude.
Last week?
Yeah.
Was this Sean's case? Are we saying?
Yeah, it was Sean's case.
About that.
So,
That's surprising.
That's going on. But Sean, talking about new rules and laws, he says that codified asset forfeiture of vehicles for racing cases. That's what we had talked about prior to the show. Let's see if we can. So the idea is that in a racing case, so let's say you're charged with racing, you get arrested, they can now take your vehicle for it. And this is just individuals. And keep in mind, you don't have to be found guilty for them to come and try to seize your vehicle. So
asset forfeiture is a much lower standard of proof, preponderance of the evidence, right?
I don't want to misspeak, but I want to say it's preponderance, is it preponderance?
I know when it's your money in your house, in like a drug situation, it's preponderance of the evidence, which we're dealing with like 2 steps down from beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a big deal. I guess that's one way. Here's a bad joke. I guess that's one way to make people stop racing is for the government to seize their vehicles. And then the cops can just race like they did in D.C. and then wreck into each other.
I would like I'm looking it up. I'm trying to find it here for whatever reason. Racing. It's not coming up on one of the ones that most people want to look at. It affects us dramatically because individuals charged with racing, we already know the district attorney's office goes and seizes assets before anybody is found guilty or pleads guilty at all. So as attorneys, and anybody who's been involved in the law, look, if you get arrested, they can seize anything like the wad of cash you have in your pocket, the car that you're driving. They can get it and try your house, your boat, your Rolex that you're wearing. Whatever it is, they can seize it as contraband or proceeds of contraband before you've pled guilty, before you've been proven guilty, any of that. Basically, they sue you and they ask you to admit all kinds of things during the discovery process, typically before your case has even been litigated, and take your stuff. So now they can do it, I guess, for racing. I would love to hear what the limitations are on their racing.
I'd like to see how this is going to happen, because in the couple asset forfeiture cases I've waded into, they'll make settlements, right? They'll offer, we'll return 20% of the cash and we'll keep 80% if your client signs away rights to it. I don't know how you're going to split up a car. I guess they're going to offer to let the person buy their car back for a lower amount. I also want to see if there's any disparity in the cars they take. right? Are they going to start seizing like Dodge Charger Hellcat?
I was going to say it's usually Chargers or Challengers.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, it's just Chargers and Challengers. That's kind of
under the speed limit if you have a Dodge in here.
It's Chargers and Challengers. That's what, and they're all tinted out, man. They're all tinted out, and typically they're orange, black, or red.
Right. Well, I had 2 Challengers last week. They were racing each other. One was white and one was gray. But allegedly racing each other. But,
yeah.
If you and I race, I know they're going to want your caddy, but they're not going to want my Subaru. So am I going to get that at impound and yours is going to be forfeited, or are they going to try to take both of our cars?
So the idea is that, let me see, it says something here, House Bill 2315, known as the Street Racing Bill, it allows for the forfeiture of contraband relating to the criminal offense of racing on a highway. In short, this bill could strip drivers of their cars if they're caught street racing. Wow, that sucks. Typically, on the racing thing, so what? So you're racing. If let's say you're legitimately racing, you get caught. You pay the fine. You call it. You get the deferred and it's out. But you get to keep your car. I guess nowadays they're saying they can come and take the car.
Is it supposed to be a deterrent against racing?
Yeah, but isn't the whole point of racing to be like?
Will they pay the bank note if they take a car that's still not paid off yet? I don't know. This just seems like a little bit of a.
Says
like the legislators just are full of nothing but great ideas over there in Austin.
Sean Powers says they'll take a Subaru all-wheel drive all day. I don't know what that means, Sean, but I like it.
I'm selling it. I'm selling it if you want it.
That's other laws.
All Sean has to do is just try to catch me racing it, and then he can have it, Tom. He's with the man.
Let's see. Other bills. Let's see. Open carry, man. House Bill 1927 allows Texans ages 21 and older to carry handguns without training or a license as long as they're not legally prevented from doing so. Basically, I think, from what I understand the law to be, is that we can all carry handguns now. And I don't think it means that it has to be concealed either. Like it can be like, I'm going to be walking around with a holster, tombstone style, so long as I'm not a felon and I haven't been convicted of anything of assault, family violence, terroristic threat, or anything regarding family violence, or have anything affirmatively finding me of domestic or family violence. To me, that's incredible. I mean, I'm not a gun guy, but I sure as heck don't want to be the only one without a gun. I don't even own a gun. I don't own a gun, man. I own like a rifle from when I was 12 that my dad gave me, but I don't even own a gun. And I don't like the idea that everybody else is carrying a gun around except for me. What says
I'm
you?
okay with it. I've got a few guns, but they're all like hand-me-downs, like you said. They're stashed in places that are way above. No, actually, none of them in this house. But yeah, I've had guns pulled on me a couple times when I'm doing my job, doing some investigations and some scene visits. And every single time, if I had a gun on me, I would have gotten my ass shot. Oh, sorry, Mark. I would have gotten shot if I tried to pull out a weapon to defend myself. I'm pretty good at talking my way out of problems, and I don't need a gun.
Look, Justin, you should.
I don't need to carry a gun. If I ever need a gun, it's gonna be for that like situation that only happens on TV of someone like breaking into my house and trying to do something, and I have a gun to stop that. But that doesn't. I don't really, knock on wood, I don't really think that happens.
Justin, you probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't be rolling around in the like 4th or 5th ward by yourself.
That's actually where one of them happened, but yeah,
you probably shouldn't be doing that, bro.
I got what I needed. I got the witness that I needed for the murder trial. It was good. All good.
And so, well, the idea is, I guess you still can't be under, so you can carry guns. People can carry the guns all you want, walk around with them. Just don't point them at other people. Just don't unlawfully carry them. I guess the idea now is you can carry guns, you can drive with guns. The whole idea of like typically unlawful carrying of a weapon We have people stopped in vehicles, and then like the butt of the gun is showing or exposed.
Right.
And doesn't meet the travel exception to it if that's the case, and they get charged unlawful carrying of a weapon. I guess now you can just ride around with your gun, huh?
Yeah, you can have it visible in a car, a handgun now. You can't be committing any other offense still, right?
Right.
Class B or above.
You can't be driving while intoxicated. You can't have marijuana.
You can have hemp though. You can carry it while you're carrying your hemp with you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can carry your hemp. It's true.
No, I'm serious.
No,
Like,
I
if you're a
know
farmer
that.
and you're growing hemp under the agriculture code. You can carry you can have your Smith and Wesson on your hip or on your car seat next to you while you're going to the hemp market to sell all your hemp.
There's a big deal about. I guess it's called. Okay, so Sean Powers says, plain view still needs to be in a holster, but not necessarily hip or shoulder. Okay, so I guess you can't just be walking around with it in your hand. So Sean Powers says. Sean Powers is in charge of intake, so I'm gonna listen to what
it's. I just tuck it into the back of my pants. So I can't do that, Sean. I have to have a holster.
Yeah, that's the question. Do you have to have a holster? I don't know where I'd put it. Like maybe I'd put it in my boot, and just be like, get down to my boot. I don't know. I don't know where I would. Or maybe I could have one of those like suit holsters, like the private investigator.
Clint Eastwood style.
Yeah.
Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Big old 44 Magnum.
Yeah.
That's what I could see you carrying with. Like that jacket's gonna flap open one day. I'm like, damn, JV.
Well, and I don't think the open carry provides for exceptions into places where you're prohibited from carrying a handgun anyways. For example, schools, churches, those kind of things. I'd imagine so.
Bars. I'm thinking more bars because it won't be very long before you can carry them in schools and churches because of the mass shootings we've had in schools and churches.
I wouldn't pass it through our Republican government to allow children to carry guns in schools to shoot people.
Yeah, that's going to be like the next step. Go, wait,
right?
Why do you need to be 21? Why 21? Like, why don't we do like 18 or 16 or like 12?
Sean Powers says in the car. Sean, you got to be more specific. I don't understand what that means. It says
the holster. He's saying about the holster.
In the
so
car?
He can't just be sitting on this. Yeah, the farmer taking his hemp to market. He can't just have his gun sitting on the seat without it being in a holster. It has to be in a holster because that holster is going to like slow you down and serve as a cooling off period before you.
Is there like a holster provision?
Another hemp farmer.
Well, fair enough. Speaking of two things, marijuana, House Bill 1535, people with any form of cancer or post-traumatic stress disorder now have access to low THC cannabis for medical purposes. House Bill 1535 is an expansion of the Texas Compassionate Use Program, which allows people with conditions such as epilepsy and autism to access medical marijuana. It now extends the category of individuals for any form of cancer. I don't know if that includes cancer and or recovering cancer and or post-cancer or post-traumatic stress disorder, which I'm not quite sure if there are limitations in what post-traumatic stress disorder is. I almost want to make light of it, but I don't think I should because I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. Thank God. Thank the universe. I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder, nor do I want to belittle it or mitigate what that means. But I'm pretty sure that a lot of people can say, I want to know what the limitations of post-traumatic stress disorder are, and if that's just a diagnosis, I can go see a doctor with. I can
go.
A
doctor and you can diagnose me with that. Will you call me after the show?
Yeah, I could get that. So I guess theoretically, I could go get. If somebody has post-traumatic stress disorder.
Don't say this on. Don't.
Well, not me.
I
say the I in the
one.
Yeah, in the one. Right. Yeah. That's incredible. So hey, you know what? And I'd rather somebody go and I don't know if I don't know if the medical marijuana expansion goes to flower only, or if it includes the wax and or other, gummies or edibles that contain little amounts of marijuana.
Well, it's low. What is it? Low THC cannabis.
I mean, yeah,
So that's
low
gonna be
THC
like
cannabis.
That's going to be like unrefined. Cannabis is unrefined.
It's gonna be like Mexican weed.
But they're going to have to. I don't know how. I mean, it's going back to the old hip farmer who's driving around in his, slammed Cadillac, and the officer thinks he smells marijuana, but it's really just hemp. Like, how are they going to know what it is? If it's low THC and you're a cancer patient, or
It's
high THC and you don't have cancer or PTSD, autism, or epilepsy.
That's so dumb. Like low. So what now? Instead of just like taking a rip, you got to smoke a blunt. Like you got that low THC, you got that like swag that you got to smoke a blunt to get high on. Like so, I mean that doesn't make any sense to me.
What's a blunt? What's swag?
So swag is the Mexican weed. It's the dirt weed. It's like, the stuff that 8th graders and 9th graders and high schoolers.
Not the chronic.
It's not the chronic. That's right.
Not
swag.
hydro.
Khalil Saman says they distribute it in pill or liquid form. Interesting. So are you saying, so on the live wire here we have an individual saying that they will distribute it in pill or liquid form. So are you saying that
that's Marinol. That's Marinol that's used for epilepsy and autism treatment. It's low THC, but that's refined and that's prescription. So I don't know. I don't know if Mr. Saman is telling us that prescription is now going to be prescribed to cancer patients and people with PTSD or what. But if it's low-grade cannabis, my understanding is the legal definition of cannabis is a green leafy substance that's not refined. I may be wrong on that.
That's interesting. Wow. And I wonder, I mean, you're going to find docs, like you can find any doc, you can find docs to prescribe you Adderall and Oxycontin and anything you want.
You can get all that stuff legally, but you can't get an abortion from a doctor.
You better not get an abortion from a doctor. I mean, because you're going to get your ass sued. Okay. Speaking of marijuana and kids with guns, there is another.
John Darvish's chiming in again?
No. Well, I was going to tie the two, but there's an active shooter bill. Let's see, active shooter alert system. House Bill 103 creates the Texas Active Shooter Alert System, which will notify Texans in the vicinity of an active shooter seen through their phones. Oh, cool. So so you get like a buzz saying there's a shooting going on. And the system can be activated by request of local law enforcement. I guess it's kind of like buzz, and then there's an active shooter, and then like everybody with their gun can go in and like take out the active shooter.
And the ones with PTSD and cancer can just sit back and like smoke their swag under a desk.
Hey. Yeah. And you know what? They just need to chill. I mean, I'm going to be over here like, I can't smoke and I don't know any guns. And I'm just going to be like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? I can't smoke weed and I don't have any guns. I don't know. I
go hide under the desk.
Well, let's see what else. So, Senate Bill 4, the Star Spangled Banner Protection Act, says that sports teams with state...
Oh, I'm so glad they're protecting the Star Spangled Banner. It was just getting beat up left and right. What'd they do?
Hold on. Khalil Saman says he had a client recently get a script, and it came that way. It was for narcolepsy. Wow. So, narcolepsy. Rick Oliver says he has restless leg syndrome. He might need some small. Okay. He might need some small weed for that, dude. I'm no doctor. I'm no doctor. Though.
THC. It's a treatment for RLS.
Mm-hmm. But I swear to God, don't you dare get an abortion.
Nope.
Start.
So the fourth Senate bill, SB 4, was to protect the Star Spangled Banner.
Yes. So professional sports teams with state funding are required to play the national anthem before games.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Texas, who doesn't want federal oversight in any way, spent time and money and legislators to pass a bill to protect the federal national anthem. Did they do anything for the Texas Pledge of Allegiance that nobody knows except for people who go to Court 16?
That's messed up.
Yeah.
I agree. We should take our guns and secede. No, I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
If we do secede, do we still have to respect the Star Spangled Banner? Like, at all state-funded, not federally funded, but state-funded sporting events?
Hey, look.
That trans athletes can't participate in. That was another bill, right?
What was it? Let me see if I can find something with trans here.
Texas trans. I don't have another computer. I'm on my.
Yeah. Limits on transgender Texans from competing on schools and in school sports. The legislature is currently in a second session, which Abbott primarily called. Lawmakers are discussing other topics, including changes to the bail system and limits on transgender Texans. You know, the changes to the bail system is an actually really big deal. Judge Draper and a few other judges have been in the news opposing this. We should have a show on that. That should really be part of it.
We do. We need to have one.
It didn't get passed, but they're talking about it.
But it's still a second session. No, it's over, isn't it?
I think they're coming through at some point. There's another one. One of the other big ones that's in town that started is you can't. Hey, if you solicit prostitution, if you're a John and or a Jane, it's a felony now. That's a big deal because, as we know, Houston is a big prostitution city, and we have DAs that have ran on as part of their platform in saying that they're going to go after Johns or they're going to somewhat decriminalize. I mean, literally on the last election, it was like, we can smoke all the weed we want, less than 4 ounces. You're not going to get arrested for it. And you can hire and do all the adult activities that you want, and you're not going to get prosecuted on it. DA Ogg obviously pulled back on that and had her own on it, but some of the more left-wing candidates or the more progressive candidates were saying, hey, look, you know what? You can Johns and Janes, you're fine. Chandra Visi said that they put a huge orange sign about it on Bissonnette. Oh, about prostitution on the track.
Oh, John's being a felony now?
That's incredible, man. And they're going to have these stings, and they're going to have these stings where these undercover women and men, I don't want to be, and men, they're going to be pulling down these guys and females about soliciting prostitution. Keep in mind, prostitution, no money has to be exchanged. I mean, they're going to have to prove all of this. This isn't something that just happens. They're going to have to prove all of it. But the idea is that there's a monetary consideration for sex or for a sexual act.
It's just to be an agreement. Just an agreement.
An agreement, right. An agreement of that consideration. And that's a big deal because a lot of individuals, sometimes they'll be like fishing, right? They'll be, that's terrible. Or they'll be like fishing. They'll be like, oh, let me see what's up. And then they get in that situation like, yeah, I'll meet you over there, cool. And then they'll bolt because they're like, well, I'm not going to have sex with that woman, or I'm not going to have sex with that man. And then they get charged.
I was thinking about this when I was a couple of weeks ago. When we represent, as you call it, a Jane, a woman who's accused of prostitution, and she's what sometimes is called as the seller. She's offering to have sex with somebody if they pay her. That's still a misdemeanor, right? And you've seen these cases, right, where the buyer, the John, is an undercover male officer, right, or someone at a strip club or something like that, right? So when we cross-examine that officer on the stand, now we get to point out to the jury that officer committed what would be a felony offense, while our client is charged with a misdemeanor offense. And the officer is not getting charged with felony simply because they were in the undercover police capacity and they're acting within their duties as law enforcement officers. So I can't think of other situations where we could be representing someone in a misdemeanor where what led to their arrest was someone else going through all the motions of committing a felony. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
I'm curious to see how that can get played with in front of a jury and what juries might think of that.
Well, and it's also somewhat akin to less than a gram cases where juries are going to just be like, "Are you kidding me? Like you've spent $50,000 of taxpayer money to litigate this less than a gram case," or in the same scenario, "Are you kidding me? You're litigating this case and you're going to make this guy a felon for him or her talking to another individual about having sex." I mean, that's tough, man, and that sucks. I mean, I don't understand.
Well,
that sucks.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
I know we only have a couple minutes left, so let's talk about. We talked about all the social issues that the legislature passed. Let's talk about some of the things that they did, like criminalizing utility companies who cut off people's power during a winter storm or don't do sufficient things to maintain the infrastructure during winter storm, and people actually die from that. Do you have information about those laws that were passed?
Yes, there was I'm looking at some yes.
I'm being facetious. None of those were passed.
Well, and
I didn't do anything. They wasted all their time worrying about problems that don't really even exist.
Well, and I said yes, and I looked, and I was like, no, I don't see any of that. No. We do have a judge that's texting us saying there's some important things about Operation Lone Star and the mounting constitutional violations. This goes into the bail practice that we just talked about, or the bail reform. One of them being that they're about denying counsel, racist and xenophobic arrests and prosecutions, unaffordable bail with no individualized considerations. This is a whole show. We need to really dissect some of these bills and go through them, particularly this one that's going to affect some bail reform and going to really not take individualized considerations into account, completely not regard socioeconomic and take into account racial and or xenophobic considerations, and removing the lawyer or their representation during the proceedings of when they would be advocating for a reasonable bail under the United States and Texas Constitution. That's a whole nother show. So I'm getting the signal here. Time to start the wrap. Justin,
let's definitely have a show on that. We need to line up some people who know way more about it than you and I do, because I don't.
I agree. I agree. Justin, good show, Justin.
Yeah, man. Thanks, JB.
Yeah.
We did it.
Absolutely. For all of us here at the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, we hope this show was informative and valuable to you. If join Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, join the listserv, be a part of the change, be a part of the challenge, be a part of the growth. For all of us here at the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, Reasonable Doubt, and Houston, and here with Mark in the studio and Houston Media Source, we thank you so much, and hasta luego. We'll see you next week.